What's up?
Hey Rich, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Good, good. I got you. What can I do for you tonight?
Yeah, I want to ask you something, Rich. You've said
Hmm.
that the biological purpose of a man is to spread his seed,
Yep.
but how does he do that outside of marriage and avoid legal pitfalls?
How does he do that outside of marriage and avoid legal pitfalls? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Knocking up
because
like a mistress or something?
yeah, and the woman can, uh, have wages garnished, and you
I'm
know,
not sure if you're asking to like spread your seed in such a way that your wife's cool with it, or are you doing this covertly behind her back?
well, I think you've discouraged men from getting married.
Yeah, marriage is not a good deal for men. But I
So how do you
understand that
spread
there's a
your
lot of
seed?
guys that have like, convictions toward it or cultural issues towards it. So, like, are you saying that you want to get married or that you don't want to get married but you want to have kids?
I do want to have kids, but um, I mean,
Okay, so I mean the
issues
question is
with
how do you
marriage,
minimize the
the
risk?
legal
Okay, yeah,
issues.
okay, okay, yeah. So I got you. So I did a cast in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you saw it on the playlist, but there was two guys. Well, there was the main guy from the parenting center. Did you see that one? And he broke down
No,
all
I
the
did not.
states. Okay, so you want to go back to that. The first thing that you want to do is you want to live somewhere where default shared parenting is already in place, because if you're going to have kids, regardless of whether or not you get married or not, the state is probably going to see it as a marriage. So if you live anywhere in Canada, for example, for the most part, with the exception of Quebec, the laws over there are slightly different. Where do you live, by the way?
West Coast,
West coast of Canada or the U.S.?
United States, very liberal
So,
state.
okay, so every state on the West Coast sucks for having kids. You're going to want to move somewhere like Arizona. I think Kentucky or Tennessee, one of those two states, was the best one on the list. But if you watch that podcast, he breaks down the main states. So first things first is you want to move to a place where you've got default shared custody, because half the time the relationship's not going to work out, and that just kind of deals with you having to fight over getting access to the kids and being able to share parenting responsibilities, and her not being able to steal the kids or make unilateral decisions around where she's going to live or name changes or medical procedures or any of those things. Kentucky was the number one. Thanks, Moff. So you want to live in a place where you don't have to deal with that. The only thing that you've got to contend with then is dealing with the matrimonial assets. So again, whether you're married or not, doesn't matter. You're going to create assets together. At some point in that state that you live in, they're going to deem that you're married, and that you're going to have to divide up the assets, right? So that's really the only thing that you have to deal with. Then you don't want any red flags if you can avoid them, and you ideally want as many green flags. I did a video last week on green flags. My red flag chapter is available for free on my email list. If you guys are newer to the channel, let me put the banner up on the bottom there. So down over here, if you go to entrepreneursandcars.com/red dash flags, you can get that chapter for free. It's also in my book. It's just a chapter that I took out of the book to let you guys opt into the list. You don't want any red flags. If you make concessions, and let's say you deal with a violent woman or you deal with a woman that's got daddy issues, there's two red flags right there that are pretty bad. The chances of you running into problems with custody, being able to raise your kids properly, have an influence in their lives is going to go up dramatically, right? So those would be the main things: is live somewhere where it's shared custody if things go sideways. If you make a lot more money than she does, have a prenup, but keep in mind prenups are only good for a short period of time. So if you're together for 10, 15 years, it's not going to be worth anything. It'll be like toilet paper. But if it's only like 2 or 3 years after you break up, it's going to be useful. No red flags and as many green flags as possible. Make sense?
Yeah, but just to be clear, Rich, you wouldn't recommend that men, have children propagate outside of marriage because that has its own problems. I mean, your assets probably aren't going to get seized, but you could still have your wages garnished. The kids could end up living with a single mother. Um,
Well, you're going to avoid the risk exposure to that dramatically. Like, you're going to lower the risk exposure if you live somewhere like Kentucky, right? And you vet for red flags. You don't deal with a chick that's got a bunch of red flags, and she's got a lot of green flags, right? The chances you run into it doesn't matter if you're married or not. Like, marriage has nothing to do with raising kids. That's just a party for women. You see what I'm
right.
saying? Or if you have cultural like affinity, towards it, if your family wants it or if you're all about it, sort of thing. Fine, okay, whatever. But you can live in a way that looks like marriage, and the government's going to call it a marriage, right? So after a certain period of time, because of common law, like here, I think it's 2 or 3 years, in Canada. So if you live with a chick for 2 or 3 years, you're basically common law, and family law now applies to, the, I'm just calling them matrimonial assets, but whatever assets, you have together, if you got to untie the knot, you're going to have to give her half your shit if you got more shit.
Right.
But you want me to
That was
give
my
you
other
the
question,
cheat
Rich.
codes. Yeah, but I mean, like, you want me to give you the cheat codes to all this, like, solve the problem right now. You can't do that. You're going to have to read the red flag chapter. Have you read it?
No, I do have the book on Kindle though.
Okay, so read the red flag chapter, watch the podcast I did last week on the green flags, and look at the podcast prior to that on the states that you should live in where shared custody is default. And you've got
Okay.
most of the information that you need right there.
All right. Thank you for the advice.
All right, man. Thanks.